this was such a incredible album. I mean, this was to me like a life-changing album because it was so different than anything else that I'd ever heard. I'd been a hip hop head really since the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, from, you know, The Message and the Run DMC's first album and so forth. And this thing, like the production on it, Muggs really just went all out. And it's really kind of interesting now because I just interviewed Chuck D from Public Enemy. When I listened to like the Bomb Squad production, and I listened to what, you know, you guys did on this first album, I now see the similarities in terms of like the noises and the kind of the off pitch and the the weird kind of sound effects that kind of work when you put it all together.
They were one of our biggest influences. Like, I mean, I could say that about our group, period. You know, from Muggs to Sendog, myself, Bobo, we were all very much influenced by Public Enemy. That probably the most influential hip hop group to us, aside from Run DMC. You know, and that was because they were out of the box in terms of their style, their content, their flow, their production. Their production was innovative and cutting edge and ahead of its time. They, you know, they put breaks, hooks, bridges, all these ill-ass sounds that was chaos and harmony mixed in one, and we loved that shit. And so, you know, when Muggs came into his own in producing, which, you know, a lot of people don't give him enough credit. The motherfucker is a genius.
I agree.
He was able to be influenced by that, but not copy it. He developed his own form of that harmonious chaos with bridges and breaks and shit that made the song come up and then drop and then come up like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And we were very much tuned in that style, Muggs and I, you know what I mean? Because we liked the same shit. Like from the darkest hip hop to the grittiest to, you know, the most out of the box shit. We were always on that same page. So I always looked at us like a flip side of Public Enemy, but with different things, obviously, that we talk about.
You're the high pitched guy, and Sendog is the low pitched guy.
We're pretty much
the reverse of Flavor Flav and Chuck D.
Right, a reversal in terms of our vocal tone, and a dusted out, trippy version of the production, if you will. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I mean, we learned a lot from just listening and watching them, and yeah, I mean, I think if it wasn't for them, I don't know if there's us, because I mean, we crafted our shit to be as different as theirs. Like, you know, we thought of them as something so out of the box that we needed to be out of the box too. We didn't want to be like, especially coming out of California. If you came out of Southern California, you were expected to sound like NWA. You know, a version of that.
Or Kid Frost.
Yes, or Kid Frost if you're fucking Latin.
Exactly.
And we did not want to be in that box.
Yeah, because you guys didn't come out as quote unquote Latin rappers.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember even, like I interviewed Mr. Criminal, and he was talking about Latin hip hop groups. And he said, well, you know, he said he's a big fan of Cypress Hill, but he's like, but they came out more like on the black side, meaning kind of like more traditional hip hop.
Right.
Well, first of all, I don't consider Cypress Hill Chicano rap realistically. I mean, I know they're brown skinned, but you know, they say like nigga in their raps, and they represent themselves a little more hip hoppy and a little bit more like urban, like black style.
I'll give you that.
You know, the cornrows, the whole nine. Like, we don't rock like that. So I think that helped play into their success as well, because they weren't in a box. You know what I'm saying? It's just like Chicano rap, or just like that Cholo image. You know what I'm saying?
Whereas, you know, what he was doing was more like on the Mexican side.
And that's true.
It's true.
It's very truthful. We wanted to just be looked at as a hip hop group and not a Latino hip hop group, because at the time we came out.
Was Lighter Shade of Brown out during that time?
No.
They came later.
No. Kid Frost and Mello were probably the only Latinos out at the time that were slightly before us.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe a year or two before us. Yeah. Mello, I think, came out in 88 or 87 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so like there wasn't too many other Latinos around, maybe Fat Joe, but like his shit was hip hop, right? And no one talked about the fact that it was, it was Latin hip hop. It was just hip hop.
Yeah. Well, I actually looked it up. Lighter Shade of Brown, their first album, Brown and Proud, came out in 1990.
Oh, okay. So shit, they were before us. That's crazy.
Just slightly. I don't know if that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
we're 91.
This album charted.
Yeah. I wasn't really paying attention to them, unfortunately. Rest in peace to the homie. We had little beefs with them at times, but I mean, for us, we didn't want to be foothold in this Latino hip hop thing that hadn't existed yet, right? So, in other words, there were those of us like Lighter Shade of Brown, like Kid Frost, like Mellow Man, and ourselves, and eventually Joe and Pun and the rest. At the time we were doing it, there was not a Latin audience for hip hop. There was kids in the hood that were Latino that fucked with hip hop. But in terms of like a Latin base, like if you were labeled as Latin hip hop, people that just fucked with hip hop, they weren't buying that.
Yeah, it was only to the Mexican crowds.
Yeah, and the Mexican crowds,
the lowrider shows,
and they weren't buying that yet.
Yeah,
they were buying like that crowd,
oldies.
Yeah, they were buying oldies and funk and shit like that.
Yeah.
That hip hop wasn't a thing to them yet, and like it was growing in that community because of Frost and because of Mello, but it wasn't there yet, and we knew that. So it was like we didn't want to allow ourselves to be boxed in by a label as a Latino hip hop group. We were like, we know we're Latin, we know what we are, and we're proud of what we are, but we're not going to exploit that to create this new fucking box. We want to just be a hip hop group, you know what I mean? And we'll show people what we are and who we are through our music. And if you listen to every fucking Cypress Hill album, there's always a Latin flavor joint out there.
First time I had Latin lingo.
Yeah, and there was Latin lingo and there was Tres X, right?
Tres X, yeah.
One which is Spanglish and one which is total Spanish. And we continued that theme later on, and then we eventually make an EP or EP or an album remake in Éxitos Grandes where it's all Spanish speaking. And, but we wanted to build that. We didn't want to that to be the main focus on us because we wouldn't have sold any records. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it worked to our,
Yeah.
I don't know if Sony saw what we were trying to say in that, but they rode with us. And they realized, okay, yeah, let's go this route. These guys are talking about let's let it happen organically. And as the Latino community opened up to hip hop, it became a bigger thing. And you saw many groups come out and then blow the fuck up after that.
Yeah.
And the talent that would come out, and the actual hip hop, or the companies that were investing into hip hop artists, they now saw that there are some Latinos out there that can fucking get down with this genre and be something and fucking make a huge run. And it took a minute for them to see that. I mean, even so, they let us in little by little. There's more Latin artists now, but at that time it was like little by little because they didn't know how to sell us, and fortunately for us, we stuck with our guns and said, you're gonna market us as a hip hop group, not a Latin hip hop group, and that helped get us out there. Now these days there's a base for Latin hip hop and the reggaeton lane and all that stuff and all the new shit that spawned from that. Now there's definitely a lane, so you can get a Latino rap group or an artist and market him towards that shit, and he's gonna do great. But back then, that didn't exist.
Yeah, it was just hip hop,
and we didn't want to be in the void.
Right, and such a brilliant album, man. "Hole in the Head" is my favorite song.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites too.
That's the beat on that, and the way you spit on that is just something else. And for example, "Hand on the Pump," the way you guys sampled Duke of Earl, which was like the most
Muggs is-
poppy, like fun song ever. You guys turned it into a gangster song, like about shooting people.
Muggs is a genius. I got
He
to
is,
tell you,
man.
he
He
knows how
is.
to create that ominous, dark, anxiety-driven music.